She posted a sad quote. "Sometimes you lose the one who loved you the most." Broken heart after I left. I didn't respond, but my silence made her followers ask the questions she didn't want to answer. "You always make me feel like I'm too much." I put my coffee cup down slowly, not because I was surprised, but because I had heard that line before, word for word, and I knew exactly what it was doing. It wasn't an accusation. It was bait. She wanted me to apologize. She wanted me to fall into that familiar spiral of guilt where I'd spend the next 3 hours convincing her she wasn't too much, that she was perfect, that I was the problem. I'd done it so many times that I could recite my own apology from memory. But that morning, something was different. I didn't apologize. I picked my coffee cup back up, took a slow sip, and looked out the kitchen window at the gray sky outside. She stared at me, waiting. The silence between us stretched like a wire pulled too tight. And I thought, one more pull and it snaps. I didn't know then that the snap was already happening. I didn't know that this quiet, ordinary Tuesday morning would be the last one we'd ever share in that apartment. I didn't know that 48 hours later, she would post a quote on Instagram with a broken heart emoji, and that the comment section would unravel everything she had carefully built. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you what actually happened. Because the version she told her followers, it was missing a few critical details. I want you to understand something before this story goes any further. I loved Celeste. I loved her the way you love something fragile. Carefully, deliberately, always aware of how easily it could break. For 3 years, she was the first thing I thought about when I woke up and the last thing on my mind before I slept. I rearranged my life around her comfort. I missed a promotion opportunity because she didn't want me traveling. I stopped spending weekends with my college friends because it made her feel abandoned. I turned down a job in another city, a job that would have doubled my salary, because she cried for 2 hours straight and told me that if I left, she would fall apart. So I stayed. I always stayed. And here's the thing about always staying. After a while, the person you're staying for starts to assume you're incapable of leaving. That's a dangerous thing to believe about someone who still has his own heartbeat. I didn't realize how close I was to the edge until I was already standing on it. And what pushed me over wasn't a dramatic fight. It wasn't a single betrayal. It was a Tuesday morning, a cup of coffee, and a sentence I'd heard too many times. If you enjoy real stories like this, subscribe, because what happened next changed everything for me. I was 28. Celeste was 26. We met at a mutual friend's birthday party, dated for 3 months before she asked me to move in with her, and by the time I said yes, I was already too deep to see clearly. The apartment was hers. The relationship, looking back, was hers too. The thing about Celeste was that she was magnetic. When she was happy, the room felt brighter. When she laughed, really laughed, you forgot every inconvenient thing about her. She had this way of looking at you like you were the most important person in the world, and in those moments, you believed it completely. But happiness, with Celeste, was conditional. It lived right next to its opposite, and the border between the two shifted without warning. I remember the first time I noticed the pattern. We'd been together for about 5 months. I had a work deadline, a big one, and I told her I needed to stay late at the office Thursday night. She said it was fine, completely fine. But when I came home at 9:30, the apartment was dark, dinner was untouched on the stove, and she was sitting on the couch in silence with her phone in her hand. "You okay?" I asked. She said, "I'm fine." 2 words that, in Celeste's vocabulary, meant the opposite of fine. I sat beside her. I asked what was wrong. She said, "Nothing. I just thought you'd at least text." I had texted. Twice. She'd left both messages on read. I didn't bring that up. Instead, I apologized. I made her tea. I stayed up until 1 in the morning reassuring her that work would never come before her. By the time she finally fell asleep, I had somehow become the villain of a story I hadn't written. I should have noticed something then. I noticed it. I just told myself it was normal. Couples go through adjustment periods, right? She's just sensitive. That's not a flaw. That's a feature. I told myself that for a very long time. The second year was harder. Not in ways that are easy to explain to someone who hasn't lived it. Nothing dramatic happened. There were no screaming matches, no thrown dishes, no catastrophic events I could point to and say, "There, that was the moment." It was subtler than that. It was the way she'd go quiet at dinner and wait for me to ask what was wrong. It was the way every disagreement, no matter how small, circled back to some version of, "You don't care about me enough." It was the way she kept score of things I didn't know were being tracked. One time, we argued because I forgot to mention that her haircut looked different. Not bad, different. She'd been waiting for me to notice for 3 days. When I finally asked why she seemed distant, she brought out the haircut like evidence in a trial. I felt genuinely terrible. I apologized like I'd committed some kind of crime. And she accepted the apology the way a judge accepts a guilty plea, with satisfaction, not warmth. My best friend Owen noticed before I did. We grabbed lunch one afternoon, just the two of us, and he looked across the table at me and said, "You seem tired." "Work's been busy," I told him. He nodded slowly, the way people do when they don't believe what you're saying but they're not ready to push. Then he said, "You're different, man. Like quieter. Like you're always thinking about what you're allowed to say before you say it." I laughed it off. But that night, lying in bed next to Celeste while she scrolled her phone, I thought about what Owen said. Like you're always thinking about what you're allowed to say before you say it. I realized he was right. I had developed this internal filter. This constant background calculation. Will this start something? Should I phrase it differently? Is now the right time? I had been doing it so long that I didn't even notice it was exhausting. I told myself, this is what love looks like. Love is effort. Love is work. Love means being careful with another person's heart. All of that is true, but I left out the part where love is also supposed to feel safe. The beginning of the 3rd year is when the phone thing started. I don't mean she became secretive overnight. It was gradual, like water wearing down stone. She started carrying her phone face down. She started taking calls in the other room. She started sleeping with it under her pillow instead of on the nightstand. I noticed. Of course I noticed. But every time I felt that tightness in my chest, that low hum of something wrong, I pushed it back down. Because I knew what would happen if I brought it up. I'd ask. She'd get offended. She'd turn it around and ask me why I didn't trust her. She'd bring up some past conversation where I had apparently implied I was suspicious of her. By the end of that conversation, I'd be the one apologizing. So I said nothing. I let it go. I let it go, and let it go, and let it go, until there was almost nothing left of the thing I had started with. Then came the trip. Her company sent her to a conference, 3 days in another city. She was excited, genuinely excited, and I was happy for her, sincerely. We said goodbye at the door. She kissed me. She left. The first night, she texted me good night. The second night, she didn't text at all. I called at 10. No answer. I called again at 11. No answer. She texted at midnight. "Sorry, late dinner with coworkers. Going to sleep. Talk tomorrow." I replied, "Okay. Night." The next morning, she didn't call. She texted twice that day, both short, distracted, like messages sent between other things. When she came home on day 3, she seemed lighter. That's the only word for it. Like something had been lifted from her. She was warm, affectionate, the version of herself I hadn't seen in months. I should have been relieved. Instead, I felt a chill I couldn't explain. I didn't ask about the missed call. She didn't mention it. And we both let it sit there between us, covered in the comfortable silence of two people who have agreed, without speaking, not to look too closely at certain things. About 3 weeks after the trip, I found the name. Not by snooping. Not by going through her phone. I found it the ordinary, mundane way that things like this happen. Her laptop was open on the kitchen counter. She was in the shower. I walked past to grab a glass of water, and a notification popped up on the screen. "Trevor, still thinking about the other night." I stood there, glass in hand, water running in the background, reading that sentence 4 times. Still thinking about the other night. There's a specific kind of stillness that takes over your body when something you've been trying not to know becomes something you know. It's not panic. It's not rage. It's just this terrible, total clarity. Like someone turned on a light in a room you'd been navigating in the dark for months, and suddenly you can see exactly where all the furniture is. Every corner, every sharp edge, every obstacle you've been bumping into. All of it, finally visible. I put my glass down. I walked to the living room. I sat on the couch. I didn't say anything when she came out of the shower. She was toweling her hair, humming something quietly, and she looked at me and smiled and asked what I wanted for dinner. And I said, "Whatever you want." Because I needed time. I needed to think. I needed to decide what I was going to do with what I now knew. Here's what I didn't do. I didn't confront her that night. I didn't check her phone. I didn't call Trevor. I didn't cry. I didn't make a scene. I cooked pasta. We watched a show. She fell asleep with her head on my shoulder. And I sat there in the dark, very still, feeling the weight of 3 years settle into something I could finally name. This was never going to get better. Not because she was a monster. Not because I was perfect. But because the thing between us had been broken for a long time, and we had both been pretending the pieces still fit. I had just needed proof. Not of the Trevor thing specifically. Proof that my gut had been right all along. Proof that the instinct I had been overriding, suppressing, and apologizing away for 2 years was not paranoia, was not insecurity, was not me being too sensitive. It was signal, and I had spent 2 years turning down the volume. That night, lying in the dark listening to her breathe, I made a decision. I was going to leave. Not in anger, not dramatically. I was just going to leave. I gave myself 2 weeks. 2 weeks to get my things in order. I quietly moved important documents to my office. I had a conversation with Owen, not the full story, just enough, and asked if I could crash at his place for a bit. He said yes without asking a single question. That's the kind of friend Owen is. I opened a new bank account. I called my landlord from 3 years ago, found out he had a unit available, put down a deposit. I did all of this methodically, without drama, without confrontation. And the whole time, I kept showing up, making dinner, watching shows, holding her hand when we walked. I felt like a ghost inhabiting my own life. But I also felt, for the first time in a long time, like I was in control of something. I never brought up Trevor. I thought about it, many times, but I knew how that conversation would go. She'd deny it, or she'd admit it and cry, or she'd flip it, turn it into a story about how I had been emotionally unavailable, how she'd felt alone, how this was somehow a natural consequence of my failings. And I would sit there absorbing it, processing it, trying to be fair, trying to see her side, trying to figure out what percentage of the blame belonged to me. I was done doing that. I had been so busy trying to be fair to her that I had never once just been honest with myself. She had betrayed me. Maybe not physically. I'll never know the full extent of whatever Trevor was. But emotionally, she had taken the trust one gave her, quietly folded it up, and put it somewhere I couldn't see. And that was enough. On a Friday evening, I packed a bag. Not everything. I arranged to come back for the rest later. Just the essentials. She was at her sister's place for dinner. I left a note on the kitchen counter. I wrote it very carefully. No accusations. No mention of Trevor. No list of grievances. Just, I've thought about this for a long time. This isn't working for either of us, and I think we both know that. I've moved my things out. I hope you take care of yourself. I didn't even sign my name. And then I picked up my bag, walked out the door, and drove to Owen's apartment. He handed me a beer without saying anything. We sat on his balcony. The city hummed below us. And for the first time in months, maybe longer, I could breathe. She called at 9:17 that night. I watched the screen light up. I let it ring. She called again at 9:20, and again at 9:40. Then the text started. What is this? Are you serious right now? You left a note? After 3 years you left a note? Please call me back. I'm freaking out. Where are you? I read every message. I didn't respond to any of them. Owen saw my face and said, "How bad is it?" "Manageable," I told him. He nodded. "You okay?" I thought about it honestly. "Yeah," I said. "Actually." And I meant it. The call slowed down after day 2. By day 3, they stopped entirely. I should have known that silence from Celeste was never actually silence. It was preparation. The post went up on a Sunday. I found out because Owen's girlfriend sent him a screenshot, and he showed me without preamble. Celeste had posted a quote card on her Instagram. Black background, white text, soft italic font. Sometimes you lose the one who loved you the most. And by the time you realize it, they're already gone. Below it, her caption. Didn't think I'd be posting something like this. But here we are. Life is funny sometimes. Or maybe it's not funny at all. 300 likes within the first 2 hours. Comments flooding in within minutes. OMG, are you okay? Sending you so much love. He doesn't deserve you. His lost queen. Whoever did this to you is an idiot. I stared at the screenshot for a long moment. She had cast herself as the abandoned one. The heartbroken one. The one who loved most. I handed Owen his phone back. You gonna comment? He asked. No, I said. You gonna post something? No. He looked at me. That's a bold move. It's not a move, I told him. I just don't have anything to say. And I didn't. There was nothing I wanted to explain. Nothing I wanted to defend. What I had was the truth, and the truth doesn't need an audience. I left her post alone. I went about my week. And I had no idea that my silence was about to do more damage to her narrative than any response I could have written. The comment section, over the next 48 hours, started asking questions. It started small. Someone who knew both of us, a girl named Bree, who Celeste had introduced me to at a party, commented, "Wait, did something happen with your boyfriend?" Celeste replied, "I'd rather not talk about it publicly, just processing," which was, of course, exactly the kind of reply designed to make everyone want to talk about it publicly. The responses doubled. So he did something? Sis, you don't have to explain anything. We support you. Some men are actually the worst. The narrative was building itself. She hadn't said anything specific. She hadn't made a single direct accusation. But the implication was thick in the air. She had been wronged. He was the villain. She was the abandoned heart. I watched it from a distance, through screenshots Owen kept sending me, and I felt something I didn't expect. Not anger. Not the urge to defend myself. Just a quiet, cold clarity. Let it run. It'll hit a wall. And then, it did. The wall arrived in the form of a girl named Dana. Dana had been Celeste's close friend for years. I had always liked Dana. She was direct. Uncomfortably direct, sometimes. The kind of person who says the thing in the room that everyone else is politely avoiding. Dana had known things. Things that Celeste had apparently confided in her. And somewhere around the third day of the comment section erupting with sympathy for Celeste, Dana posted her own comment. It wasn't aggressive. It wasn't mean. It was just honest. Cel, I love you, but I think you know this is complicated. Maybe don't let people fill in the blanks. That was it. 8 words of warning wrapped in love. The comment section immediately fractured. What does that mean? Dana, do you know something? Wait, is there more to this story? Celeste deleted Dana's comment within minutes. But the internet never forgets what it has already seen. Someone had screenshotted it. The screenshot started circulating. And now the comment section wasn't just full of sympathy. It was full of questions. Celeste made the mistake of posting a second time. I think she meant to smother the fire. Instead, she handed it oxygen. The second post was a photo. Her, sitting by a window, looking out at the rain. No filter. Real tears, or something close to it. Caption: 3 years. I gave everything I had. I don't regret loving. I just wish it had been enough. The comments exploded. And buried under the "you're so strong" and "the real love deserves better," someone asked, did he cheat? Or did he just leave? Celeste replied, he just left. And then someone, I still don't know who, wrote, no reason? Or a reason he kept to himself. She didn't reply to that one. But she also couldn't delete it without drawing more attention to it. The question sat there, unanswered. And on the internet, unanswered questions metastasize. Dana, apparently, had been watching all of this. She texted Celeste privately. I know this because Celeste, in a spiral of panic, called her mutual friend Bree. And Bree, who had always been more my friend than Celeste's friend, told Owen. And Owen told me, because that's what Owen does. Dana's message, as relayed through that chain, went something like this. So, I care about you. But you know I know about Trevor. You know I know what you told me after the conference. If you keep letting your followers build a story about how he abandoned you for no reason, eventually the real story is going to surface. I'm not going to say anything, but I can't keep watching you do this. Stop posting. Celeste's response, apparently, was to stop responding to Dana and to keep posting. The third post was a mistake from the beginning. A video this time. No words, just her face, soft music playing in the background, her eyes looking straight at the camera with that particular expression she'd perfected. Raw, beautiful, devastated. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. The performance was the statement. But the comments section had evolved by now. It was no longer a single chorus of sympathy. It had developed its own internal debate. Something feels off about this. 3 posts in 3 days is a lot. I've seen this before. Girl gets caught doing something. BF leaves. She plays the victim. That Dana comment was weird. Why did she delete it? The silence from his side is sus. Innocent people usually defend themselves. Guilty people post sad quotes. That last comment got 400 likes. I read it twice. I didn't write it. I hadn't written a single word on any platform. But my silence had become its own kind of statement. And the internet had decided to interpret it. Let me tell you about the conference. Not what I imagined. What I eventually found out. About 2 weeks after the breakup, Dana reached out to me directly. A simple message. I hope you're doing okay. I think you deserve to know a few things. Not because it'll fix anything. Just because the truth matters. We met for coffee. Just the 2 of us. And Dana told me, carefully, not without conflict, what she knew. Celeste had met Trevor at a conference 2 years before the one I mentioned. They had a history, not a full-blown affair. Dana was careful to clarify, but an emotional intimacy that had never been fully closed. When Celeste went to the second conference, the one where she didn't call me back, Trevor had been there. They had dinner. Alone. And whatever happened that night had apparently been enough for Trevor to text her 3 weeks later, still thinking about the other night. Dana hadn't known what to do with it. Celeste had confided in her because she felt guilty, or so she said. But the guilt, Dana told me quietly, didn't stop her from keeping the line open. She never fully cut contact with Trevor. She kept his existence just below the surface, close enough to reach, but hidden enough to deny. And the entire time, she had continued to hold me accountable for every small emotional absence, every forgotten detail, every late night at work, as though my imperfections were crimes and hers were secrets. I sat across from Dana and took all of this in, and I thought about 3 years. 3 years of apologizing, 3 years of shrinking, 3 years of being told I was too little while she harbored something that was too much. I wasn't angry. I was tired in a way that sits behind the eyes. Why are you telling me this? I asked Dana. She looked at her coffee cup. Because she's letting her followers think you just walked out on a good woman for no reason. And I've known you for 2 years. You're not that. I nodded. It doesn't really matter what they think, I said. Dana looked up. It might matter to you eventually. It doesn't, I told her. Right now, it really doesn't. And I meant that. The social media storm ran its course. These things always do. By the end of the second week, Celeste had stopped posting about it. The comments section had grown too uncomfortable. Too many questions she couldn't answer without incriminating herself. Too many people who had screenshotted Dana's deleted comment and were treating it like a clue. She quietly archived all 3 posts. Gone. Like they had never existed. But the internet, as I said, has a long memory. The screenshots lived on in DMs and group chats and Reddit threads I'll probably never read. Some people had already formed their opinions. Some would never change them. That's the deal you make when you post your private pain in a public space. You surrender control of the narrative. She had posted to control the story. Instead, the story controlled her. I found my new apartment in good shape. It was smaller than the one we'd shared. Quieter. The kitchen had a window that let in morning light at an angle I liked. I got a plant. I hadn't had a plant in 3 years because Celeste didn't like them. That sounds like a small thing. It isn't. Every small thing you gave up to keep the peace, they stack. By the end, the stack is taller than you realize. And when they're finally gone, the space they leave behind is enormous. Owen came over one Saturday morning, 3 weeks after I'd moved in. We sat at my kitchen table with coffee. He looked around the apartment slowly. The books, the plant, the bare walls I was still figuring out how to fill. You look better, he said. I feel better, I told him. She's been quiet online, he said. It wasn't a question. I heard. People are still talking, he said. In that low-key way? The ones who put it together. I nodded. Does that bother you? I thought about it honestly. No, I said. I never asked for their judgment. I don't need their verdict either. Owen was quiet for a moment. Then, did you ever think about posting something? Setting the record straight? No, I said. Not once. He looked at me like he was trying to understand that. Why not? I looked out the kitchen window at the morning light. Because what would I say? I finally answered. That she had an emotional whatever it was with some guy from a conference? That she made me apologize for 3 years for things that were her own guilt talking? That she posted sad quotes to get sympathy after she spent months making me invisible in my own relationship? I paused. None of that needs to be announced. The people who matter know what kind of person I am. The people who don't know me formed their opinion from 3 posts that no longer exist. I don't owe my story to strangers. Owen sat with that for a moment. Then he raised his coffee cup. Fair enough, he said. We drank in comfortable silence. The plant on the windowsill caught a beam of morning light. I thought about how I hadn't noticed something so simple. Light through glass, green leaves, the smell of coffee in a quiet room, in a very long time. Here is what I want you to understand about the way this kind of thing ends. It doesn't end with a confrontation. It doesn't end with someone throwing something across a room. It doesn't end with a dramatic speech, or a tearful revelation, or a satisfying moment where the truth finally detonates in front of everyone who needs to hear it. Sometimes it ends with a bag, and a note on a kitchen counter, and a drive through a city at night with the windows down. Celeste never got a direct explanation from me. I know that bothered her. I know she wanted a scene, something she could present as evidence of my failure, something she could use to confirm the story she was already writing. I denied her that, not out of cruelty, out of self-preservation. If I had confronted her, I would have spent 3 hours being told why I was wrong about how I felt. I had done that enough. About a month after I left, I received one final text from her. Not a plea, not an apology, just, I hope you find what you're looking for. I stared at it for a while. There was something in it that was meant to sting. The implication that what I was looking for was some impossible ideal, that I had left perfectly good love in pursuit of something that didn't exist. I didn't respond. Not because I had nothing to say. I had plenty to say. I could have written paragraphs. I could have dissected that message the way she used to dissect things I said in arguments, pulling apart every word until the meaning reformed into something new. But I was done doing that. I put my phone down. I went back to what I was doing. Unpacking a box of books, putting them on a shelf in alphabetical order, a task so simple and so entirely mine that it felt like a small act of reclamation. I didn't respond to her final text. And that silence, like all the other silences, said everything I needed it to say. The Instagram followers eventually forgot about it. The comment section theories dissolved into the general noise of the internet. Celeste moved on, or at least moved forward. I don't know the difference from where I'm standing, and I stopped trying to track it. Dana and I exchanged a few messages over the following weeks. She's a good person who found herself caught between loyalty and honesty, and she chose honesty when it counted. I respect that. I told her so. Owen and I still have coffee on Saturday mornings. My apartment has 3 plants now. I sleep through the night without waking up at 2 in the morning with that familiar hum of something wrong, that low-frequency anxiety that I had grown so accustomed to I'd mistaken it for my own personality. It wasn't my personality. It was the sound of a relationship that had been straining at the seams for 2 years. Now the room is quiet, and I'm learning what it feels like to exist in quiet without interpreting it as danger. Let me circle back to the quote. Sometimes you lose the one who loved you the most. She posted it to be seen as the one who lost. But here's the thing about that framing. It assumes that whoever left must have loved less. That departure is the evidence of lesser feeling. That staying would have been love, and leaving was the absence of it. I don't believe that anymore. I believed it for 3 years. I believed that staying, at any cost, in any condition, was the proof of love. That endurance was devotion. That to leave was to fail. But I have come to understand something since those quiet Saturday mornings started feeling like gifts instead of gaps. Sometimes leaving is the most honest thing you can do. Not for the other person, for yourself. Staying in something that is quietly consuming you is not love. It's endurance. And endurance has a limit. The moment I hit mine, standing in that kitchen with a coffee cup, not apologizing, was not the moment I stopped loving her. It was the moment I finally started extending some of that love toward myself. She posted that quote to make me look like the one who left something good. But I think, if she's honest, really honest, somewhere beneath the sad song background music and the perfectly lit tearful video, she knows what she lost. Not me specifically, not my face, or my presence in the apartment, or the specific way I made coffee on Sunday mornings. She lost the version of herself that could be fully trusted. She lost the relationship she might have had if she had made different choices. She lost the clean conscience that comes from being the person you present yourself as. That's a heavier thing to lose than a boyfriend. And no quote card can post-caption your way out of it. Her followers asked the questions she didn't want to answer, and she deleted the comments, and archived the posts, and moved on to the next chapter of her public self. But questions don't disappear when you delete the comment. They just move somewhere else. Into the conversations you have with yourself at 2 in the morning. Into the silence after a first date with someone new when they ask, "What happened in your last relationship?" Into the mirror. Those questions don't need my help. They'll find her on their own. I don't tell this story to make her look bad. I don't tell it to make myself look good. I'm not a perfect person, and I wasn't a perfect partner. There were probably moments she deserved better from me. But here's what I know. I gave what I had. I gave it consistently and genuinely and without a safety net. And when I finally understood that what I was giving was going somewhere I couldn't see, that the effort and the care and the years were building something that didn't include me in its foundation, I made a decision. A quiet one. A final one. And I have not regretted it once. The plant by my kitchen window is doing well, by the way. Grew 3 new leaves last week. I don't know if that means anything, but I noticed, and I didn't need to be reminded. She posted a sad quote about losing the one who loved her most. She wanted the world to see abandonment. She wanted sympathy dressed up as solidarity. What she got instead was a comment section full of the questions she couldn't answer and a silence from my side that her followers found more suspicious than any accusation I could have made. I never said a word. I never had to. The truth, when you leave it alone, has this remarkable quality. It finds its own way to the surface. And some silences speak louder than anything you could ever say.